There are new interviews with director Christopher Nolan and actors Matt Damon, Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson for The Odyssey, thanks to a newly published article by GQ. The director gave us some new details surrounding his film, the actors discussed some of the hardest parts of filming the epic, and we also got a confirmation about the runtime and rating of the film. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing the interview and all the new details shared, breaking down the latest info from Nolan's film. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey movie, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's discuss the new Christopher Nolan interview and details for The Odyssey. So the new article for GQ paints a greater picture of the effort that director Christopher Nolan and his cast went to in making the new adaptation of The Odyssey. We got extended interviews with Nolan, Damon, Holland and Pattinson, and to go alongside it, there was also a featurette released which gave us some new behind the scenes images with the whole crew. One of the new shots shows Christopher Nolan on board one of the giant practical ships he filmed on. Another shows him working side by side with Robert Pattinson's Antinous as they film one of the many suitor scenes. Another also has Nolan about to film one of the cave shots, presumably the one with the Cyclops Polyphemus. And another image has him working with the new IMAX camera system, which is absolutely huge. We further get some other behind the scenes looks at the film, including one at the palace in Ithaca. The location they shot at was a rocky hill that would take nearly an hour to hike up, and the path was not wide enough to bring up filming equipment. All of the cast had to hike up the hill in costume, while helicopters would carry the crew and equipment up and down. They also had to build a camp platform that could accommodate around 200 people. There was further another image of Odysseus standing alongside his men, and then also one showing off the size of the Trojan horse as it's being put into place in Troy. I will be showing these images again on screen and providing other ones throughout discussing the interview details from GQ. But some other details that came out over the last day was the confirmation of the runtime of the film and also the rating. This goes alongside the news that tickets for IMAX showings of The Odyssey in the US have now gone on sale, and in other countries they will go on sale on June 15th. According to official theatrical sites, The Odyssey will have a runtime of 2 hours and 52 minutes, which is just shy of the 3 hours that many were predicting prior. And on top of this, the film is also going to be rated R. Homer's The Odyssey is filled with material that could easily push a film into rated R territory, as the ancient Greek epic includes bloody battles, revenge killings, graphic acts of violence, nudity, and several romantic relationships throughout Odysseus' journey home. Many fans believe that Nolan would want to stay faithful to those elements, and this would also follow the massive success of Oppenheimer, becoming one of the highest grossing R-rated films of all time. The only other R-rated Christopher Nolan film was Insomnia. So Nolan is definitely taking a risk, but it makes sense for the material he's adapting, and it will be able to adapt elements of it the right way. So now that we've discussed all of the smaller details that were revealed, it's time to detail what was said in the interviews with Christopher Nolan and his cast members for the new GQ article. Starting with Nolan's part of the interview, the director began to talk about how audiences don't want more of the same, and why making a movie that risks everything is the approach he always tries to take. He said, if you love movies, if you love Hollywood, the history of Hollywood, the history of movies, the thing that you understand in your bones is that what the audience wants is something new. They want something they don't know they want, so the only sure thing is something that's not a sure thing. So that's the paradox, and it's scary for the people I work for, but that's how you have to make movies. You have to risk it all on every project. What Emma Thomas and I have always passionately believed in is if you're lucky enough to succeed with a project, you kind of have a responsibility as a filmmaker to try and say, okay, what can I do? What am I allowed to do now that maybe I wouldn't have been allowed to do before, or somebody else wasn't allowed to do? On some level, I think of my job as one long attempt to find some moment of magic in a real place, like a real sunset or castle. When The Dark Knight did everything that it did at the box office, that was when Inception began. And obviously, coming off the back of the success of Oppenheimer, it was like, we've got to use this opportunity to try and really do the most ambitious thing that we can. The director then turned attention to his new Odyssey film and mentioned how adapting Homer wasn't about changing the story, as it was about finding the missing setups. He said, "When I revisited the poem, I realised that it was all payoffs, but it doesn't have the setups. What I realised is, to make a screenplay for this, it's all about setting those things up, being true to those because the payoffs are incredible. It's now my responsibility to, within the form of the structure of the poem, try and set these things in motion so that the audience, an audience who's not as familiar with the poem and the mythology of the poem as Homer's audience, would be ready for these things." The director then briefly talked about time, family, and the things that drive him thematically. He said, "I've always lived in time. It's the motor in all of our lives, it's the thing we're fighting the whole time. It's the thing that torments us or plagues us all along. And then the tension is in so many of my films between family and wanting to be with family and having responsibilities outside of that, being pulled outside of that." Finally, the director talked about using the IMAX format and why it is so central to his filmmaking. He said, "It's such an addictive tool because it's this beautiful, incredibly crisp image that if you can get the images, if you can find a way to get them on that camera, the audience just dissolves into it. With the reaction to The Dark Knight's opening IMAX shot, that became addictive. With every audience, there would be a gasp, and that's very addictive as a filmmaker. IMAX is the secret sauce and the magic of my filmmaking." Moving on, we further get some interviews with actors Matt Damon, Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson for GQ as well. Starting with Matt Damon, the actor says that Christopher Nolan's productions operate on an entirely different scale. He said, "It's just so much bigger, it's like surfing a bigger wave. A wave that's twice the size isn't twice as powerful, it's exponentially more powerful. The final days on a studio lot weren't easy. We showed up and Chris had 2 jet engines blowing so much water at us. Because of where the movie business is going, it was a really weird movie for me personally, in the sense that I almost had a nostalgic feeling the entire time, because it felt like movies were when I started working. I don't think people are going to be given the resources to shoot movies that way for much longer. I mean, there are people who will, like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan, they are people who can do it." He also briefly compared reading the script to The Odyssey to that of Interstellar and the emotional experience he felt as a father. He said, "I was so emotional reading both scripts, and particularly the Interstellar script, because I just had kids. I was overseas, away from them for 2 weeks, but I was still away from them. And that script is about losing the entire childhood of your kid. I just remember calling Chris afterwards and being emotional." The interview then continued briefly with Tom Holland and Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson compared his character Antinous to James Woods in Casino. He said, "My character's a little like James Woods, that was my inspiration for it. I thought it would be quite nice to see it in Ithaca, and he's like a little sleazy. I kept saying at the costume fitting, I really want to have leopard underpants. I want to have it just coming out of my skirt a little sparkly fur." He then talked about Nolan's response when he asked to read the Odyssey script. He said, "I was like, yeah, I can't wait to read it." And Nolan replied with a question, "You want to read it?" because everyone else just said yes. And when it comes to Tom Holland in this interview, the actor said that working with Christopher Nolan on The Odyssey was unlike anything he had experienced before. He said, "I think coming from the Marvel space, and I think this will upset Marvel a little bit, his level of preparation is unlike anything I've ever seen. There's not a single question you can ask him that he can't answer immediately. He's also quite simple in the way he works. There are times when they use fancy camera tricks and things like that, but he really does come to set and he finds the shot. I remember walking down this beach for half an hour and I'm just seeing Greek soldier after Greek soldier, Greek boat, the Trojan Wars and so on. I don't know if I'm exaggerating, but it felt like miles. I'm saying to the PA, where is the crew? I haven't seen any evidence of a film set." To me, this is more reminiscent of a reenactment than it is a film set. Chris didn't fake anything, everything was real, and everything you're reacting to is what he wants your visceral human response to. The actor also talked about how he felt he needed to step away from acting before shooting The Odyssey and how the whole production delayed work on Spider-Man Brand New Day. He said, "I needed a break and I felt like I'd overworked and I needed to do some growing up in my personal life, which required me to have some time at home. And then also, I just wanted to make sure that I was always in love with what I was doing. I think to do what we do, we're so lucky, and the moment it becomes a chore, there's something wrong." And regarding the new Spider-Man movie, he said to Chris about The Odyssey, "I want to do this movie, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to call Sony and have a very uncomfortable conversation." I think one of the reasons why Sony were happy to move Spider-Man is because Chris has that reputation of this movie isn't going to go 5 months over and we're actually going to lose Tom for 2 years. Also, The Odyssey almost saved Spider-Man because we wouldn't have had the director Destin. He wouldn't have been ready to make the movie when we were ready to go. We wouldn't have had the 6-month period to develop the script with Destin to get it to a place where it is now. But they were all the main details revealed in the new interviews with Christopher Nolan and his cast for The Odyssey. What do you guys think towards some of the new details shared for the film, and based on everything you've heard, does it get you any more excited? Let me know down below in the comment section. For much more videos and breakdowns, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.